Okay, I want to address, before the video gets started, I have like 3 videos filmed and I have like darker hair and a mustache and all this kind of stuff. Those are like a while back. Also, I'm trying to get over the depression and like all that stuff. So I'm just going to really like crack down on the content for you guys. So yeah, if you see those videos in the coming week, just note that like my editor has not gotten to it. And blame him. Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. I am very excited for the video that we are going to be doing today. Let's just get into it. So today we are going to be discussing the rumored feral people in Appalachia. So lately on TikTok, my For You page has been nothing but these videos of feral people in the Appalachian Mountains. And every time that I see one, I get this really specific feeling. Not fear, but discomfort. Because these stories aren't new, but the way that they are being told now is.
Apparently there are feral people in the Appalachian Mountains that come down in the dead of night, steal people away, and then eat them.
I wasn't even going to record this video, but I honestly can't even comprehend what I saw last night.
When I say feral, I ain't talking about no monster. This ain't no hills have eyes type shit.
My grandfather had an encounter with feral people in the 1950s. Wow.
Are the feral people in the Smoky Mountains real?
The Appalachian Mountains. You know how like there's like feral people out there?
Have you ever heard of the feral people that live in the Appalachian Mountains?
The wild men of Appalachia are feral people who live in the mountains of Appalachia.
With Appalachian feral people.
Have y'all heard about the feral people that apparently live deep in the Appalachian Mountains?
One thing that's kind of crazy to me as I look through all of these inbreeding and feral people videos is something about human psychology. We know that if you take one person and you raise them in the wild, they come out essentially not knowing how to speak, not knowing how to properly function. They often walk strangely.
I mean people that have lived apart from society for so long that they have quite literally adapted different. They move differently than we do, right? And Appalachia, with its half-a-billion-year-old cave system that's 90% unexplored, is the one place that theory actually holds water.
In early January of this year, I accompanied my grandfather down to eastern Tennessee to the small rural town he grew up in. While on this trip, my grandfather shared with me a lot of stories about his childhood, growing up in Appalachia, and a lot of other things.
Apparently, this is a very common thing for people that are hiking or camping in the Appalachian Mountains to see feral people. Hikers around North Carolina and Tennessee that have reported seeing something thin, pale, and fat that look like a human, but also not, running on all fours, foaming at the mouth with piercing eyes.
I'm out here in the middle of nowhere. I was sleeping, dead asleep last night above my cab. All of a sudden, I heard something rummaging through my cab. Like ran. It was on 2 legs, so it definitely wasn't a bear, because last time I checked, I've seen a lot of bears, and bears run on 4 legs.
Cannibals? Yeah, there's cannibals. There's a lot of walking spirits out in those mountains.
So basically, there are some people that are supposed to be inbred deep in the mountains in the Appalachian Mountains. They apparently do not socialize with regular civilization, and the lore says that they're cannibalistic.
Now they don't come up to you unless they want to hurt you.
You get cases like Victor of Aveyron, where he was raised in the wild, and because he was raised in the wild, he didn't sense hot and cold the same way that normal French people did.
Listen, long before the US existed, indigenous tribes like the Cherokee talked about the moon-eyed people. These were large-eyed, pale people that lived underground, would come out at night because they avoided sunlight, and sometimes they would even kidnap children. And boom, early settlers move in. Then the stories start about entire families living off in the mountains, separated from society, far away from town, avoiding outsiders, and speaking in a weird dialect.
So in February of 1954, a few weeks before my grandfather turned 12, his family's little farm had been experiencing some attacks on their animals, mainly the chickens.
They usually don't bother you unless you bother them.
So today, I want to talk about these ideas and where they come from and how social media has twisted them, and why Appalachia keeps getting used as the backdrop for this horror, even when in reality, it is way more complicated than that.
Are they like naked and stuff?
Apparently.
I think I've heard about this a little
bit. It's not really even lore anymore, and they're supposedly cannibals.
Oh.
There's even one story in particular. It happened in 1969, and it was this kid named Dennis Martin.
He went hiking with his his family, I believe his father and his grandfather, they met another family on their hike, also called the Martin. They end up saying they're going to set up camp together because it's funny coincidence that they're both named Martin. Now, this family had 2 little boys, so they all start playing, the 2 little boys and Dennis, and they planned to scare their parents, and the parents knew what was going on, but they're like, okay, you know, when you pretend that you don't see a child hiding to try to scare you. So they sent Dennis by himself on the other side of the woods, and the 2 of them stayed together, and they all planned on jumping out when the parents came. Now, when the parents came and the 2 boys jumped out, everybody was kiki ha-haing.
Dennis is not around, the little boy. He's like 6 or 7 years old. They end up going to the police. Police end up sending out a whole search for this kid. They search and search and search for months, bro.
We hosted like the largest search party ever trying to find this poor little boy. Nothing, like literally nothing.
But eventually they ended up finding a footprint in the woods, and it was the exact sneaker of the child. But right next to it is a grown-sized barefoot print.
Then there's another account from a person that said that he heard
screaming that sounded like a child, and when he went to that area,
that they recall seeing a very strange, frantic-looking man, old man that was not dressed fully.
He looked hella feral. He damn near wasn't wearing any clothes. He was barefoot, and he looked hella scary.
Sprinting through the woods with something over his shoulder that looked like a human. Now, that is speculation, but honestly, it terrifies me that they never found poor Dennis. To this day, they still think that he was taken by the feral people because the guy that said he heard the scream, he also said that when he looked up into the woods, he saw a feral-looking man darting back into the forest. They never found Dennis's body, unfortunately.
If you didn't grow up in Appalachia, it's easy to imagine it as this empty, lawless place. Endless wood, isolated hollers, places Google Maps barely even touch. The isolation is real, but it doesn't mean that the people who live here are these mythical or inhuman monsters.
Coal mines start crisscrossing the region in the 1800s and the 1900s, and some coal miners would actually get stuck underground for weeks at a time. When they would emerge, they would have pale skin, be disoriented, unable to tolerate sunlight. Look, some locals still talking about some miners didn't come back up. Well, where the f did they go, Susan? Are they still down there? Listen, hear me out. If humans did live underground for generations, we would eventually adapt. We would have larger pupils to see in the dark. We would have pale skin from lack of sunlight. We would move differently because we're quite literally crawling around caves. We would also have heightened hearing and sensitivity to light and night vision, like I said. So I'm not talking about on some supernatural shit. I'm just talking about what happens when biology evolves in the dark. Like, think of the fish that live at the bottom of the ocean. They look wild.
So we know about like isolated cases, but we have no body of evidence for what happens when you have large groups.
In the weeks before, they had lost 7 or 8 chickens from their flock of 30 or so.
I got out in the middle of the night. I don't usually do that because it is creepy as heck when you're out here in the middle of nowhere in the dark. Door was open and this bin was on the ground. The lid was off. There's food all over the ground. And I was like, oh my gosh, is this really happening? Like, I don't know what I'm gonna do right now. I just stuck around today because I want to try to figure out what's going on. I just had my top popped down because if anything happens, I want to be able to bolt out of here with no problems. It's getting dark and I want to try to see if I can get something on camera.
He can see them. He has seen them standing behind trees watching him.
One night during a fairly heavy snowstorm, my grandfather's family was awoken to the sounds of chickens screaming and flocking around their coop, some 70 or so yards away from the house.
A lot of what gets labeled as feral people online is really just extreme poverty, generational isolation, and communities that learned to survive without outside influence or help because they didn't have a choice. What bothers me isn't that people are scared. It's that these stories quietly turn real people and real regions into monsters for content.
My thing is, people say that the feral people are actually just an inbred family that live deep in the mountains because there's like 2,000 miles or acres worth of uncharted forests and also a bunch of caves that nobody's ever explored. So it really makes sense that they could live there.
You know, what about people who went on the Oregon Trail and got off track and were never found and never heard from again?
Historically, when people talked about feral communities, they aren't talking about something supernatural. They were talking about people living outside of mainstream society. No infrastructure, no access to health care, no reason to trust outsiders. In Appalachia especially, there are long histories of exploitation, coal companies, land grabs, outsiders coming in, taking what they wanted and just leaving them with nothing. And that creates mistrust, not monsters.
There's so many people that get lost in the Smoky Mountains, and some of them are never found again, and they always say something like, oh, it was a bear attack. It was probably a bear. It was not a bear.
Listen, for decades, hikers and rangers in Appalachia have reported seeing naked people in the woods running through the trees. The fuck? They've also reported people being covered in mud, crawling on all fours. And then there's the reports of whistling or mimicking voices in the woods, which on that note, don't you ever go in the woods whistling.
My grandfather and his dad, Paul, immediately jumped into their boots and coats and ran outside to confront what they believed would be some coyotes.
But like something about that is giving paranormal. The fact that they see little girls and little boys at the tree line staring like this, and the closer you get to them, they drop on all fours and then go into the forest faster than your headlights can see.
Sure, there's the Donner Party, but a lot of other people went on the Oregon Trail. And not all of them are recorded making it to the other side. We just assumed they all died.
And this is where I want to bring up the North Sentinel Island.
Would you try to make contact with this tribe? For any reason whatsoever, this is an uncontacted tribe on North Sentinel Island, and they are one of the last uncontacted tribes in the world.
This is real footage of an incredibly dangerous island in the middle of the Indian Ocean, where nobody is ever allowed to visit. And it's not because it's impossible to get to, but because the people that live there won't even let you get close to it. This is North Sentinel Island, one of the most mysterious and protected places on Earth.
If you're not familiar, it's home to one of the most isolated tribes on Earth. They don't want contact. They actively defend their island. And they've been labeled everything from primitive to savage by outsiders.
They're fiercely protective of their isolation, and approaching the island could cost you your life. The North Sentinelese have thrived there for an estimated 2,000 to 30,000 years. And while much of their way of life is still a mystery, we know enough to understand this. They want nothing to do with the modern world and wish to remain isolated.
But when we talk about isolated people elsewhere, especially poor rural communities, that respect often disappears. Suddenly, they're horror stories. The Whitaker family is a perfect example of this. They became internet famous as a kind of shock content. The most inbred family in America. People gawked, made jokes, turned them into something less than human.
That was the craziest shit I've ever seen. I've never seen human beings like that. That's like being on another planet.
Generational poverty, disability, neglect, a system that failed them completely. They weren't monsters. They were people who needed help and instead became entertainment.
If you think your family got a lot going on, then you must never heard of the Whitaker family. They're known to be America's most inbred family, so let's talk about it. So the Whitaker family live in a village of Odd in West Virginia and has become one of the most well-known families in America due to their complicated history with inbreeding. And the story of their inbreeding began with twin brothers, Henry and John, whose children married each other and had kids. Like, they're so close and relatives, like, it's insane, actually. To the point, most of them could not even talk. Like, they made all type of, like, animal noises and grunts, and, like, they would do, like, different hand gestures, but they understood each other.
And then, Hollywood took these ideas and ran with it, as they often do. The Wrong Turn franchise is probably the most obvious example. Cannibalistic, deformed mountain people living in the woods, hunting outsiders, Appalachia as a stage for the brutality. Those movies didn't come from nowhere. They're built on decades of stereotypes about I can't fucking say that word, damn, rural. You know, that's one thing. I grew up in Appalachia, all that stuff in the South, and some people say that I still have a Southern accent, but then I went through like 3 years of speech therapy because I had like a little lisp and I didn't know how to say survival without putting a W in there. So now I can say survival, you know what I mean? So sometimes these words still fuck me up a little bit. Anyways, okay. okay? They're built on decades of stereotypes around rural, poor communities, especially in the mountains. When you watch those films next to TikTok feral people videos, you realize something uncomfortable. The internet is just repeating the same story faster.
We have been like out in the woods, we've been fishing, night fishing, and you can hear their screams and hollers.
And then they report structures that don't look like they were made by campers, like they're made out of sticks and shit. And that's also when we nope the fuck out of there.
Or the fact that they lure people, apparently, allegedly, they lure people in with the sound of a woman crying, and that's when they steal you away.
Both stopped dead in their tracks as they saw what my grandfather described as the nastiest, most foul-looking human-type creature you could possibly imagine.
These official or unofficial reports never say feral people. They usually say unidentified human presence, and then the case is closed or it's sealed.
A light on in the barn illuminated the creature, and my grandfather said that it was almost bare naked, save for what looked like a pelt draped around its shoulders, and it had a dead chicken in its mouth.
Considering the fact that the Appalachian Mountains are older than Pangea, I would never, and I mean never, take a chance out there. I would never hike there. I don't care how beautiful it is. I will look on Google Maps.
And I'm not saying that there's an underground society beneath our feet. All I'm saying is in the national parks, especially in Appalachia, people tend to go missing downward, like into the cave system, into underground mine shafts, into underground tunnels. So my question becomes, who's actually down there, or what is down there?
His dad snapped out of shock, fired a few rounds at it, and he nicked it once on the upper thigh. It ran across a field, initially on 2 legs, before it dropped down to all 4s and disappeared into the woods. They aren't people like you or me or anyone we know. They're very different. They live deep in the woods, and they don't leave, hardly ever. It seems like they lived deep in those woods and holler longer than anyone has ever been there. They're almost like animals. I suppose you might call them wild.
These woods don't need imaginary villains to be dangerous. Exposure, terrain, getting lost, human conflict, those are real risk. Turning Appalachia into a horror set doesn't make people safer. It just makes it easier to stop seeing the people who live there as human. I don't think there are feral tribes hiding in the Appalachian Mountains. I think there are stories born from isolation, fear, and misunderstanding, and the internet doesn't know how to tell those stories responsibly. And maybe the scariest part of all of this isn't what people think is out there in the woods. It's how easily we turn real suffering into entertainment. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And I hope you enjoyed this video and my take on it. I know it is very hypocritical of me to be discussing turning Appalachia into content, because that's literally what I'm doing. And like what I've based my whole platform around. But I think there's a difference between setting a stage for content and exploitation of the less fortunate. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one. I love you. Goodbye, and stay safe.